every so often, I'm supposed to be sitting here doing something else, sitting in front of the computer. Um, Again, more can't shut my brain off. Again, YouTube and these goddamn algorithms. Every so often, I get a divester video that comes across my path because of the YouTube algorithms. And another video came up across um, my screen. Uh, what the hell is a damn video? What is this? Let me see if I can find it. Who is this? This is Simply Said. And the name of the video is Seems the Segregationist Strom Thurmond was a better dad than Dr. Dre. And that's the title of the video, right? And so basically, I mean, it's to be expected, but the video, like, as soon as I heard her start talking, before she even dove into like really laying this shit out, I was like, I bet you this is a divester video. I didn't even read the title, it just came up. Um, no, because I was looking up Strom Thurmond because a white friend of mine, he just found out about, what did he send me? Oh, he sent me some that somebody had posted on Twitter about Thomas Jefferson and Thomas Jefferson's like great great grandson or something like that, and how the kid was running around basically saying that he is a descendant of Thomas Jefferson, right? And we know about Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings and all that stuff, right? And so kids were like, Thomas Jefferson's not your grand, like all the white kids that he went to school with. And basically the moral of the story or the Twitter post was, um, about critical race theory and CRT and all this other stuff. Basically teaching the like actual history of what's going on, because like white people are so bad with it. They don't know the history. They don't know like what was actually transpiring. Like they literally think that, everything is, Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves. There was some racism in the 50s. Martin Luther King gave a I Have a Dream speech. Racism was over. And then black people are just lazy and just bitching about racism. That's really over. And, we even further made racism go away by voting for Barack Obama. The end. Right? That's how they think of this shit. So all the stuff, Thomas Jefferson, what he was doing, owning slaves, sleeping with slaves, who was actually, I believe, like one of his cousins, because his father was sleeping with slaves. Nobody knows the history. But anyway, that's what I was looking up. So actually, that's why this video came up, because it had Strom Thurmond in the title. But as soon as I clicked on it, right, because I thought it was going to give some breakdown, because I was trying to find a video, because I was sending it to my white friend. I was trying to find a video that would actually give the history of what was really going down, because I already know about the fact that he was taking care of his daughter on the low. You know what I mean? Like she would come through. They never built a true relationship, but he was, breaking her off a little bit, something, something. And what this woman said in her video was on the order of like, $100,000 since the 70s until I think 2003 is when he died. Right. And so, but, as soon as the video started, I was like, this is Divester. And what I'm about to say didn't even hit me until later. But, so basically she's talking about how Strom Thurmond took care of his daughter, and he's a white supremacist. So giving him praise and accolades for taking care of his daughter, using it as an example to speak on how black men as a collective, they don't take care of their kids and legacies and generational wealth and all this other stuff, right? Even though, like, yeah, Strom Thurmond broke his daughter off, but she couldn't participate in the white supremacist structure that he was supportive of and advocating for, right? But anyway, this divester is, just doing what divestors do with these reaches, and bringing up Dr. Dre and what's going on with his daughter. His daughter, she's down and out, and Dr. Dre is like, I'm not helping you, blah 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 blah, and everybody just sees that, his daughter basically put out a post or whatever saying that she needed help and her father's not helping her, and then everybody's like, oh, Dr. Dre, oh, he's got tons of money, why isn't he helping his daughter, blah 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 blah. So then this turns into the evil black men. Even when black men have money, they don't take care of their kids, and here's a white supremacist Strom Thurmond, and he took care of his biracial daughter, so equals white men better than black men, right? That's basically the argument in a nutshell, right? And then she also brought up 50 Cent and his estranged relationship with his son. Now, as someone who grew up in the suburbs, I know plenty of white people who cut off their children, and it doesn't happen overnight. Again, I don't know what's going on with Dr. Dre and his daughter. I have no clue. I didn't even know the chick existed, until she made her post. I was like, oh, he's got a grown daughter. I was like, I didn't know that shit. But white people cut their kids off. Usually it revolves around drugs. They try to get them into rehab and all that other stuff. And then eventually they just tap out. They just get tired of it and they just tap out. And then that's why you see all those white kids roaming around Camden and shit like that. Or not Camden, Kensington. That's why you see them rolling around Kensington and whatnot. The America's largest open air heroin market, Kensington, Philadelphia, and the Badlands, right? That's what I showed that with that RoboCop clip. I was making the joke about Kensington looks like OCP Detroit 1987, the first RoboCop movie, because it's literally what it looks like. It looks like OCP Detroit. But anyway, that's the main thing the main reason why I see white people cut their kids off. But anyway, because of drugs. But there's a lot of dirty laundry that they have that, we're not going to see all the time. Black people, we like to talk about our dirty laundry. We put it out there. Other groups of people are not as open about putting their dirty laundry out there. And it's sort of problematic because then black people it just reinforces a lot of the inferiority complex that we already have, like as though we're the only people that have many of these problems. No, it's just other people that they don't put their dirty laundry out there like that. And I had to learn this the hard way with somebody who was non-black that I used to talk to that I no longer talk to, where I'm sitting here thinking, trying to figure out how other communities operate. And I'm sitting there sharing and talking about, the ways in which black people are fucked up. And, well, does this go on in your community and everything? And basically, they would engage me talking about, black people. Oh, I found this. Oh, I found this article. Da 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 da. They would share all this stuff about whatever was negative going on in the black community. But then as soon as I got to talking about her community, she would deny that anything was going wrong. I'm like, what are you talking about? I pull up videos on YouTube that are disgusting, the prostitution or the femicide or the whatever poverty, whatever's going on. I like all this shit here, the way the government's fucked up. All this stuff is right here on the internet. What are you talking about? I just had, I sent her articles, and then all of a sudden she, wants to deny, oh, this isn't real. Oh, this isn't that. We don't have those. Like, so what I realized is I was sharing, black people's dirty laundry with her, but she wasn't willing to share her community's dirty laundry with me. And so I'm just telling y'all this, thinking like, that we're all going to like, that you can have these intellectual conversations with people who aren't black, and that they're going to reciprocate and be like, and be honest and be like, hey, well, actually, we got something similar going on in our community. That's why I posted that video about the woman talking about the single mothers in the Philippines and how they have just a ridiculous amount of single mothers in the Philippines and deadbeat dads and all that shit. She putting it out there, on the internet. But a lot of other communities don't do that. They like to cover their shit up with, oh, well, we're the Philippines, we're very Catholic, da 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 da. But despite being as Catholic as they are, they have this single mother problem and all these kids out of wedlock. But anyway, I didn't know that until watching her video. So now I know their dirty laundry. You see, because she put it out there. But anyway, this woman that I'm talking about, she didn't want to share her shit. So I stopped fucking with her. I'm like, I'm not going to sit here and I'm opening up to you, but you're not opening up to me. I can't fuck with you at that point. So, we don't talk anymore. But anyway, getting back to this whole thing with the divestors. So I've explained, the throwing black men under the bus, praising white men. This is why these women get called bed wenches. But this is the part that got me, right? And this is the part that it just clicked with me. The fact that as soon as she started talking, within the first 30 seconds to minute or so, I was like, I bet you this video is a divester. You know what I mean? And then I skip forward in the video and then let it play, skip forward, let it play. Then I started reading the comments and I started seeing that these were the divester type of comments. The white men all good, black men all bad. And then again, their main focus is always on white men. They don't really talk about other races of men too much. It's always on white men. And it's kind of irritating sitting there, as a black man, listening to, this garbage where, they only see what they want to see. Like even the point that and he sent her to college and all this other shit. I'm like, I've dated black women who went to college, and the main reason they went to college because their fathers were paying for it. And I know black fathers that have paid for their daughter's education in cash. Like they don't have any student loans. You know what I mean? So the reality versus what this woman is saying, and the fact that I'm like you really gonna sit up in here and act like you don't know any black fathers that have paid for their daughters to go to college or supported their daughters in their journey of education or whatever it is, helping them get to that point, helping them get, a scholarship. It's mind blowing because I see it. It's mind blowing for them to sit up in here and act like it just doesn't exist. And then big up white men like they're the only ones, that are doing it. Right. What was I going to say about the college and the other thing is just the majority of black people who make it to college and are able to go to college, black people who come from 2-parent homes are the most likely group to go to college. So to even make an argument, again, all you gotta do is just focus on the black women who are in college, and you'll find a higher percentage of black women whose fathers are heavily involved in their lives and still married to their mothers. So again, the divestors they sit up here and they make these nonsensical, exaggerated arguments that don't add up. Right? Moving from there, the other thing is, she's talking about 50 Cent, she's talking about Dr. Dre, comparing her to Strom Thurmond, and then, bigging up Strom Thurmond, and he's a white supremacist, but we're going to overlook that because I want to make a point bashing black men, saying that Strom Thurmond was taking care of, his daughter and everything. And again, that's another irritation and causes me a lot of resentment when it comes to, these type of women, because, it's so getting acknowledgement for black women for doing positive things is like pulling teeth. It's they just don't want to do it. This is what I talked about in my last video. I'm like, you got to give it up if you want more people to do X, Y, and Z and do more things that you see as positive. You got to reward them. You got to acknowledge them. And there's just reluctance for black women to do that. Whether it's because they don't want there to be hierarchies or just because they just don't want to acknowledge, I'm like, what is that? Seriously, what is that? Because you're sitting here and you're overlooking the fact that this man was a white supremacist, up there talking that segregation now, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever, right? You're overlooking that, but then I start talking about, black men getting acknowledgement, getting praise for what they do, and then divestors make the argument, black men want credit for shit that they're supposed to be doing. I'm like, here we go with that. Not wanting to acknowledge shit. Here we go with this shit. But you're going to sit up in here and big up a white supremacist because, you're trying to make a connection between, he took care of his kids, but Dr. Dre and 50 Cent, they're not taking care of theirs. Right. And then the funny thing is, I'm sitting there and I'm like, so you bring up Strom Thurmond and the fact, he took care of his kids. I'm like, how come I don't hear you talking about Johnny Carson and Johnny Carson's son and how Johnny Carson's son basically abandoned the daughter. I think he had a daughter that he had. Right, this is. I mean, the clip is right on YouTube. You pull it up. Freaking. I think Chris Rock brought it up on the Arsenio Hall show, and at the time, Johnny Carson owned the Arsenio Hall show, so it was like, oh shit, we got cut the break. Because they're like, oh, we can't talk about this. Chris Rock, I'm pretty sure it was Chris Rock. He thought he was being funny and shit like that, but they was like, nah, no, because Johnny Carson, I mean, big time racist. His son had the child underneath the same conditions that Strom Thurmond had the child. He was fucking the help. Bottom line, he was fucking the help. And that shit went on a lot. Where do you think all these light-skinned people came from? All these light-skinned senior citizens and light-skinned boomers and shit like that. Where do you think that came from? Because there was a lot of white men that were fucking the help. This shit's been going on forever. But, again, all the way back, Thomas Jefferson. This shit's been going on forever. You got two groups of people who are, regardless of what the power dynamics are, they're in close proximity to each other for decades. And you don't think that any attraction is going to go down or anything's going to pop off and shit. Parents, foaming at the mouth, racist and everything, and they raising the son. Again, many white men, they used to be breastfed, from black women. You know what I mean? So there may be, definitely has been a whole bunch of, white men that have whatever lusting fantasies or whatever about black women just based on the close proximity that they had growing up around them because they were the help. They were the maids. You know what I mean? And the maids also had daughters and brought them by and they thought they were cute and shit like that. All that shit was popping off. Again, maintaining white supremacy is what prevented a lot of the interactions that would have gone down from going down, long term. But they were going down. That's how we have so many. That's the whole reason why we got light-skinned people. Again, the miscegenation laws were not to prevent black men from keeping their dicks out of white women. They were created to prevent white men from keeping their dicks out of black women because obviously white men couldn't keep their ass out of the slave quarters. So they was like, oh no, we gotta prevent this, and they've done that everywhere. They did that in freaking Australia with the rabbit-proof fence type of shit. You know what I mean? They did that in South Africa with trying to, create different categories. These are coloreds and then give them slightly more privileges. The white supremacy been doing this shit. Okay? Because they don't want there to be, this sort of, this half caste, because, it fucks with alliances. It fucks with maintaining white supremacy. White supremacy can only maintain itself if white men are making children with white wombs. Point blank, period. But anyway, now we get into the meat and the potatoes. Because this is the part that really just kind of gets me. And I don't have an answer for this. I'm just asking the question. And y'all can write whatever you want in the comment section and break all this down. I'm asking the question. What is going on with the divestors? I don't feel that y'all are telling the truth. Your shit doesn't add up. Because if you listen to the divestors, do you notice how they all sound the same? Every last one of them sounds the same. They all have that same fake ass white girl valley voice. Like they all sound like they're from, Southern California or some shit like that, or live in the valley somewhere. This fake bougie ass voice. And I'm like, why do all the divestors sound like that? Why do they all try to imitate this high squeaky pitch, freaking, Clueless? Who's the actor? Who's the actress that did Clueless with Stacey Dash? I forget the white girl's name, but you know what I'm talking about, right? They all have that like mean girl voice going on, and that makes me ask the question, like, where do you all come from? Like, where did divestors come from? Are they girls from the inner city and urban environments that are trying to, pretend that they're not? Like they got so much, inferiority complex or self-hatred that they're girls that grew up in poverty, grew up in the ghetto, and that they're trying to act like they're too sophisticated for the inner city. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of shit in the inner city and poverty and black people and all that other shit that goes down due to black people experiencing existing and prolonged exposure to poverty. There's a lot of that shit that I can totally understand why somebody doesn't like that and is trying to get as far away from that as possible. What I don't understand is the cooning out. The Brandon Tatum type bullshit, Ahmad, the McMichaels didn't do anything. Ahmad Arbery, he didn't get the McMichaels didn't shoot him. He ran into the bullets. Really, he ran into the bullets. Yes, the McMichael was aiming in a different direction, and Ahmad Arbery ran in front of the shotgun, and that's how he got shot. It's like, really, like when you start cooning out like that, and that's what I see with these divestors. I'm like, y'all coon too much. Y'all do that Brandon Tatum, Candace Owens shit way too much. And again, your stories don't add up because I'm trying to figure out, I'm like, what type of, like, where is this anger coming from? Now, it's already been pointed out that a lot of these divestors, they already have kids. And I'm like, who did you have kids with? Because you're coming off like you got this bougie suburban voice, which makes me none of these divestors. If you listen to the divestors, divestors sell it. She sounds like she came up in like the streets and shit. She sounds like a quote unquote real one. But like all these other divestors, they come off with this like bougie ass fake, freaking yellow jump rope. I don't know if y'all remember yellow jump rope, or who's the other girl, Pink something. You know what I mean? Like they have this real like just it's like who talks like that? Like black women don't really talk like that. But I'm saying if they do, I would expect it to be women who come from the suburbs. But I grew up in the suburbs. Even the black women who grew up in the suburbs, the majority of them didn't talk like that. They didn't sound that quote unquote corny. They just didn't. It sounds forced. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I'm saying, how come none of these women sound ratchet? And what I'm thinking is that a lot of them did grow up in poverty and didn't have their fathers in their life, and they're these inner city black girls that are trying, they whatever experiences they had, they got such an inferiority complex about being black or being attached to black men. It's kind of like in psychology it's called displacement. It's like, a man loses his job at work and then comes home and then beats his wife up. Instead of punching his boss in the face and the guy that fired him, he goes and starts beating his wife, or he kicks the dog or some shit like that. And I feel like that's the issue with divestors. Because I'm like, okay, either they did come from the suburbs and that's why they all sound like a bunch of, Valley Girl airheads, or they're faking it and they didn't come from that, and and their fathers weren't there, and so that's why they have issues, or they're only telling half the story, and they grew up in the burbs, but they were on some rebellious shit and went out there and was fucking with some dude that was in the streets. Because I know a couple that, I grew up with and went to school with, and they were on some rebellious shit, and they went out there and they got pregnant by a Pookie. That does go on. Oh, he's got so much swag. But then, Pookie is Pookie. Pookie doesn't, that's not what he is, and so these women end up with babies, and then, their value goes into the shitter, and the life that they thought that they should have and the class that they came from, it all goes away. Because especially those of us who grew up in the burbs similar to them, we now look at them like, nah, she got a kid with this nigga, and we think that we're better than him because, of the socioeconomic class that we came from. Like, nah, again, like, it's like, not only did you get pregnant, you got pregnant by the class that, again, the suburban mentality is we're better than them because, our parents had resources, and, obviously they took us out of that environment because usually we're only one generation out of poverty. They took us out of that environment because they didn't want us to be subjected to niggardry. right? So like that's the mentality. But you see a girl that's from the suburbs, and then she over there, you know, getting with Mister, street. I got game magnificent, and then she ends up getting pregnant. Like she, she can't sit with us anymore. That's sort of the mentality, and maybe that's where some of the bitterness comes from. I mean, I'm just spitballing. I'm just saying the story doesn't add up. And those be like, no, you can have ELs and they out here and they just as bad as Pookie. If that were the case, then why isn't that your story? Why are you all you all file these deepest in the deepest darkest depths of the ghetto complaints, but you sound like a valley girl? So I'm like, where are these two worlds colliding? How are you sounding like literally you should be in the movie Clueless, and yet you're complaining about Pookie and Dusties and niggas in jail and criminal activity and all this other shit? Like, how are you even interacting with those folks? I know plenty of black women who are with white men, married to white men and everything, and they don't coon out. You know what I'm saying? They don't start tap dancing and they don't start doing all that shit. But the divestors that I keep hearing, I mean, tell me I'm lying. I mean, just listen to the videos. Just pick all the top 5 divestor videos that you want to pick. Different channels. They all have the same voice. They all have this airhead valley girl voice. And I'm like, either you're faking it or you came from the burbs, and I don't know, shit didn't work out with you. But if shit didn't work out with you, like I'm struggling to understand why you're so angry and complaining about Pookie if that's not even the class of men that you like. Where are you coming across that? Where are you coming across that? I mean, growing up, if I wanted to be around, the streets and shit like that, like I literally would have had to get into the car and drive into, I don't know, North Philly or some shit like that, and then get out the car. Right? Like that's what I would have to do. I'd have to literally drive it. I wasn't around that shit. So when I hear these women filing these complaints, I'm like, where were you around gunshots? Like, where was this going on, Miss Valley Girl? Like, their shit isn't adding up. And again, if they want to say, oh, it's ELs and some EL got me pregnant in college or some shit like that, then make that your argument. That's not what I'm hearing, though. I'm hearing the most extreme, inner city gang violence, poverty, dustiness, drug dealing, all this. That's what I'm hearing. Do rag wearing, a baggy jeans sagging. Like, this is the type Timberland boot wearing. Like, this is what I'm hearing. But your voice doesn't sound like that. So either you're faking it or you're only telling us half the story, because I'm trying to figure out how you got incorporated or even remotely rub shoulders with that world. Now, what I'm really thinking it is I think a lot of these women are faking it. I think a lot of these women are putting on these white girl voices, because at the end of the day, a lot of them, it's like Little Kim, you know what I mean? They want to be white. They want to be white. They're mad that they don't get, the global beauty validation, validation, not just a matter of, black men, being interested in them. No, they're like, I want to be white. I want to be a white woman and I want to get global validation. I want, to be able to, basically do all the shit that they see white women doing on the cover of Vogue magazine or some shit like that. And they're mad because they're attached to black men. So it's like they already have the inferiority complex about being black, and then they're attached to black men, and then it turns into this again, the projecting, the displacement. Now you're mad at black men because they didn't win a race war and whatnot, right? But this is more rooted in self-hatred than it has anything to do with what black men are doing or not doing. Because I'm saying again, the voice And the narratives that these women are pushing, they don't add up because those worlds don't collide unless these women are simply not telling us the full story. They're not telling us the full truth. Again, if you think I'm pulling shit out of my ass, jump around and listen to all these divestor videos. They all have the same damn, imitation white girl, valley girl voice. And as somebody who grew up in the burbs, I already know, like, man, there were maybe one or two black women that actually sounded like that. Like, they actually sounded like a valley girl. And even as a black man who grew up in the burbs, I was always like, huh? Like, I mean, I got hit with you talk like you're white enough growing up. I think I've kind of shed, a lot of that, which sometimes I think is good and bad. I try to stop saying, nah, I'm saying, nah, I mean, and all these like word fillers. What's so funny is when I'm talking to y'all, I do it way more than I do it in real life. Like when I'm talking to white people, like I code switch without even thinking about it. Like I don't sound like I'm talking to y'all. I sound like Grant Wellington the Third or some shit like that. Oh, this is such a marvelous venue. You know what I mean? Like that type of shit. I'm like, nigga, you don't talk like that. Like the other side of my brain's like, nigga, you don't talk like that. Nigga, I know, but I'm trying to get over. Shit, nigga. Like that type of shit. But the story's not adding up. I don't have an answer. I can't definitively say whether this is that and that and this is this. I'm just saying this shit don't add up. To me, it just looks like a whole bunch of self-hatred. And like I said, to sit up there and bring up, Strom Thurmond, big him up, but then y'all can't acknowledge black men with like it's like pulling teeth. They don't want to do it. And then so you bring up Strom Thurmond, a white supremacist, and then you don't say nothing about Johnny Carson's son and how he just completely abandoned, his daughter. You get what I'm saying? Like it's coonish behavior, or as Dr. Claude Anderson would say, inappropriate behavior. But I think I'll tell you what I love about the divestors. The divestors are the self-hatred that black women have that never, saw the day of light, that never got examined. Like black men's self-hatred and whatever issues black men have, that's always been at the forefront. We're like, it's like people are familiar. I mean, first off, it's like any black man that doesn't conform to typical black culture, people will say, he's a coon, he's so hating, he's this, that, and the third. It's like Clarence Thomas, he married a white woman and everything. But again, during the New York, Rifle Club, New York v. Bruin case, I mean, he laid it out about the Second Amendment and how it was used not how it was used, but how black people were denied the Second Amendment, and used that as, the compelling argument of, the opinion, right? Of his opinion that he laid out. I'm like, where's the coon? But what was I gonna say? It was something I was gonna say. I was bringing it up. But anyway, I'm saying black men always get, you date a white girl. Oh, he's a coon. He's Uncle Tom. He hates himself. Your mother's black. You know what I mean? Like there's always been that when it comes to black men, and it's always been this attitude like black women are just the most self-loving group of individuals ever, and there is no sort of internalized self-hatred that develops on its own, right? Like if in other words, it's always like there's black women's self-hatred is kind of put in the space of black women are only self-hating through the lens of having a inferiority complex or low self-esteem brought on by the colorism or whatever of black men, or the black men and what they do and don't do. Right, where black men's self-hatred it's like it's in a vacuum, and it just is either caused by white supremacy brainwashing the black man, or it's just like this this degree of, or what do I want to call it, this manifestation of self-hatred that just forms in the nucleus of a black man, just out of the void. You see what I'm saying? But it's not caused, by anything else. Like what I talked about when I talked about, Kodak Black, and some of, his colors. I'm like, Haitian immigrant. I'm like Haiti isn't known for, economics or anything like that. Right? I'm like, that's a lot of poverty. And then they come here, as refugees and shit. I'm like, it's a lot of poverty. I'm like, where would a child growing up in that develop, you know, um, any sort of positive identity surrounding blackness in that situation? And nobody was feeling that. Everybody, nah, he said that he likes light skinned women. Self hate, nigga. And it's just that. But when it comes to black women's self hatred, it's black women's self hatred is always the cause of black men. It's never something that, originates with them. But when it comes to black men's self hatred can never have anything to do with black women. You know what I mean? It's even like, this was touched on with Aaron Magruder with this scene in the Boondocks, with Uncle Ruckus's mother, and how his father was self-hating and his mother was self-hating, and his mother had blonde hair. Anytime I see a black woman, especially a dark-skinned black woman with blonde hair, I already know what time it is. Or any well, I guess all of the colors are non-black, but I'm saying wearing green or blue contacts or anything, I already know what time it is. I already know what time it is. I already know you don't like yourself and how you look and everything. That's why you reaching on. Really? Blonde? Really? But black women have been able to hide all of their nasty bullshit behind and dysfunction and emotional shit, like shit that they need to go and see a therapist for. They've been able to hide it all behind evil black men. And I'm saying it doesn't make sense when you're either acting like, or you are a black woman who came from the suburbs, where if you grew up in the suburbs, first off, you don't even really get to be in the suburbs unless you're coming out of a two-parent home. You know what I mean? When you're raised in a $500,000 to $700,000 home, like you don't get to be over there without having a mother and the father in the home. As a rule, I know there's exceptions out there, but I'm saying as a rule, you don't get to be in that environment. So I'm like, so starting with the father, I'm saying if these women grew up in the burbs, I'm like, you had a father figure who was there. What are you talking about? Because you can't, again, 90% of people can't be in the burbs unless they're in two-parent homes. That's what the burbs is all about, right? 4 or 5 bedroom house, 2, 3 car garage, right? That's what it's about, right? Like the garage is actually in like the house. You know what I mean? Like there's no separate garages. Like no, it's actually like a part of the house type shit. Like this is the type of, this is what I'm saying. This shit just doesn't add up. I'm like, your father, if you grew up in the burbs, your father was there 9 times out of 10. And this is just speaking about the what, 25% of black people who grew up in two-parent homes. I think last time I checked, it was like 86% of black kids are born out of wedlock and whatnot. We got stupid numbers as it pertains to that. But, I'm like, I'm trying to figure out where this Valley Girl voice is coming from. Where is that shit coming from? It's not adding up. The stories aren't adding up. There's a lot of these women are just like projecting, deflecting, redirecting, um, uh, displacing whatever issues they have. I don't know. Maybe they were sexually assaulted. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out. I'm like, where is this anger coming from? Because the shit that they bring up, I'm like, based on your tonality and your voice and all that, I'm like, when were you around that shit? So again, like I said, these women are either faking it, thinking that, if I put this sweet voice on, I guess, or act like a white girl, these white guys are gonna love me or some shit. I don't know. And we've all seen them. We've all seen, these black women out here that, they're attractive enough to be, pull Brad or Chad, and but they always, what I mean, they're looking at you like you're looking at them, and you're not really looking like chick. I don't care that you're with a white dude. They're looking at you like they're trying to pick a fight with you based on some idea that you care about what's going on with them when you really don't. It's like, chick, I've banged enough white women to where I don't care. Like, I would be a hypocrite saying anything. Like, what I mean? Like, I understand that you got dudes that are out there that, get in their feelings and shit like that. But I'm just saying, I've come across these women, these sort of, just like that woman that Dennis Sperling interviewed. That's another primary example. The woman that had that Confederate flag, mask on her face and just talking crazy. And they had that real squeaky, annoying Valley Girl voice. I can't get that shit out of my head. I'm like, what is that? It seems like it's just very manufactured. So I'm like, nah, you sound like somebody who you got some serious inferiority complex. And it's like a they're trying to have like this out of body experience. I forget what it's called, and it's something in psychology, but it's like there's like very strong denial. And when it shows up in its very extreme form, where you get like those people. I remember they used to have those shows, they used the talk shows and shit, when you would have somebody up there and they would be like, I don't like black people, blah, 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 blah. And then like they would have like Tyra or somebody and be like, well, you're black. And they go, oh, I am not black. And you're sitting there looking at the TV like, huh? Those people, like, that's what divestors remind me of. Like, they're like, I am not black. Well then what are you? Well, not black. And you're sitting there and you're like, but you are black. No. And then they stick their arm out and they're like, I'm brown. And you're like, wow. Shit is fucked up when black people sit there and they're on the couch and they're going, wow. Like, you're blown away at like the preposterousness of what you're seeing on the screen. You're like, did she like is she dead ass serious? She's dead ass serious. I get the fact that, yeah, black people, they got a lot of issues and everything. Just say that. And you don't want to be associated with that. Okay, just say that. We get it. We get it. But again, when you start getting into delusional la la land, I'm not that. I mean that is some serious psychological damage. When you just go straight full blown denial mode. Or you go just full blown, the white man's stinky drawers, or just, smell like potpourri, like when you start doing shit like that. And I watch for that. That's why I like Amazing Lucas's growth, man. Because Amazing Lucas, he used to kind of be on the shit, but now like Amazing Lucas is like really shifted. Really shifted. He tries to stay, more balanced and everything, but he's starting to realize, like, no, as I've always said since day one, I'm like, these white folks only co-sign you to the degree that it's beneficial to them. As soon as it's not beneficial, they're not consistent with their logic and their morals and all that other shit. It's all conditional based off of, who the players are. Again, he needs to comply. Black people ain't complying. That's why they got shot. Da 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 da. Blue lives matter. Then Ashley Babbitt tries to jump over the barricade in the White House, or in Congress, and that black Secret Service officer or Capitol Police, he puts a 40 caliber bullet in her neck, and all of a sudden, it turns into he needs to be tried for treason. Like you're like, wait, huh? What? What happened? What happened to all that smoke? What happened to all that energy of they need to comply? You know what I mean? What happened to all that? What happened to Blue Lives Matter? Oh, the cop is black. So now all of a sudden there's no more Blue Lives Matter. Now all of a sudden, she needs to comply, goes out the window. I'm like, ain't this a bit? And you can only see that so many times before you start saying to yourself, like, these white motherfuckers ain't inconsistent. They're just flat out racist. And then once you realize that, like, you realize, I can't continue along on this path or this journey with you because I can see that you're biased. Plain and simple. There's no consistency. You're biased. So anyway, I just had to put this out here and say this because and again, you good luck trying to punch holes in this shit. Not that I'm acting like I'm the absolute authority on this, but this is just how I feel about the shit. Cause I'm like, y'all with these fake ass valley white girl voices, I'm like, where's that shit coming from? And then what y'all complaining about, you shouldn't even be around. But yet you have, again, the way these women are complaining, I'm like, y'all got too much history with this shit. You know what I mean? What are you gonna say? Oh, you were a suburban black girl, and the only niggas that were approaching you were niggas. Like, how were they approaching you? Where were they approaching you? Where, what was this going down? You know what I mean? Were they approaching you in college? How were they approaching you in college? You didn't meet them in the classroom. Where was this going down? I mean, somebody, fuck, again, divestor, number of, 096-2, I mean, write it in my comment section. I won't block you. I really want a definitive answer on what's with this fake ass, not as Cap likes to, he used to say, the no belligerence. That's why he did that video, no belligerence. Because women used to try to dismiss, a lot of the issues in terms of women's behavior. They try to dismiss that shit with, what would they dismiss it with? Oh, those are just the ratchets. And Cap, so eloquently in his video, he pointed out, he's like, this is not the ratchets. These are women that are educated. These women are sophisticated and everything else, and they will not follow. They will not cooperate. They're being resistant. They talk about they want a man to be, established and on and everything. Here I am, babe. Here I am. And they would run off in the other direction because they go, ooh, no, I like dealing with Dusties because Dusties allow me to be the boss bitch and run shit and be in charge. But see, unfortunately, a lot of these women don't discover until later, you can't control what men do and how a man is. And a lot of times, they get in there thinking they're going to leverage their education or whatever it may be. And, Pookie stops, once they have the baby or, he gets tired of sleeping with her, he bounces. And now she's sitting there stuck with the baby, running around thinking that prior to it. And that's a very hard fall for a chick who just thinks that, her value will always be as such. That, mine came from such and such, and my father is this, and I grew up and, he bought me a brand new BMW, and I did it. I knew a few women who fell into that trap. And, Pookie came through, told them a bunch of sweet nothings. They fell for the shit, got pumped up full of a baby, and he brought her right down to where he was. And when they finally wake up to that reality, they're mad, they're angry, they're bitter. But this is kind of what I'm thinking is going down with the ones that actually are from the burbs. That do come from solid background. Their issues not with their father. Their issues with the man that pumped them up full of a baby. and he ain't shit. And this is their way of screaming to the universe. But the problem is they out here slapping around the broad brush and everything, bringing categories of men that they weren't even fooling with. Just making these generalized statements, again, cooning out, the white man's ice is colder, just completely ignoring examples of, white men doing foul shit or black men doing the right shit. They don't want to acknowledge it. And the terrible thing about this is like, a lot of people, if you're not careful, you can fall in the trap of these sort of echo chambers, which is no different than what you see with the white supremacists. They get in the echo chambers. They don't get any other outside information and whatnot, and or anything that's contrary to their current belief system. And and then they put that out there, and then other people who are just coming into the space, they start believing that that becomes their starting point, and a very negative place. As it pertains to, what, the reputation of black men. But like I said, I'm going to end this video because I'm just rambling on now. But again, I keep seeing the same thing. I'm like, your story's not adding up. The voice ain't adding up. Your experiences ain't adding up. I need somebody to come through and fill in the gaps. I'll give you the floor. You could use whatever mental gymnastics you want to use. I don't care how you get from point A to point B. I just want you to demonstrate that you can get from point A to point B. I need to see the connection. I'm like, okay, that's how that went down. Okay, I get it. But I highly doubt that you all can do that, because I think that a lot of you all are lying. I think that you're omitting the truth. And I think that you're grossly exaggerating, which is why your shit doesn't make any sense. But anyway, that's all I got to say. That's my video. SWP out. Don't forget to comment, share, like, or subscribe. I'm out.